Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Packers.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay. We got Rusty Hurts. It says the Oval Office. I hope that's not the case. But Jacob's going to join us here in a minute. He's been battling the old Rona, I believe. So he may hop on here, have a few comments, disagree, and then get out. That's the way that'll work. So, Tim, how you doing this morning, bud?
I'm doing good. I'm looking for some coffee, right about now, just like this guy. That was me about 5 minutes ago, Clayton.
Heck yeah, man. I hear you, dude. And this morning was a little easier for me, but I've got to start getting back in the swing of things because come March, it really starts to ramp up for me in February, but March is like, all right, boys, 5:30 every morning. Let's get this thing cranking. Let's get out there on the grind. So anyway, let's go to the super chat here. Seth Ruder, Bill's first drive play calls leaked. Clayton, just send it to your DMs. Might be worth sharing with the class. No way. They actually who in the building leaked that out, Tim? That's wild.
I don't know, but somebody's not going to have a job.
And here's the thing, too, Seth. The first thing that comes to mind for me is, what if they intentionally leaked it? Oh, never mind. I see what he did here. This is a comedic relief. I got to make sure we can – well, I can't share it because it looks like it's from a movie. Hold on just a second. Let me just take a quick peek.
This is a joke, right? So we're not
I think it is.
Okay.
And I do not have Facebook on my – okay, there it is right there. Yeah, so this – we can't show this, unfortunately, Drew, although it looks hilarious. Yep. All right. I can explain it to him, Drew. I wish I could, man, but I'm telling you, the second we put that on the screen, there will be copyrights aplenty hitting the old channel here. So you guys, to me, it looked like it was the remake of The Longest Yard. You ever seen The Longest Yard, Tim? Right?
Yep, absolutely.
Remember where he hits the official with the football?
Yep.
So they basically shopped our boy Josh Allen's face on the video on the quarterback. So you just first play from scrimmage. Let's go ahead and get these refs in check. You know what I'm saying, man? So
I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation around that. I think the Bills Mafia did a good job prepping this game. I don't know if prepping's the right word. Yeah, there you go, Emilio. His first executive order as our commander in chief said no more rigged Chiefs games here. Okay, no, it's. I think that everyone has done their part to bring it to light what's going on, and it is hilarious that I put a series of tweets out. I want to say it was like week 17 or something, where Patrick Mahomes flopping like he always does, and I could not believe the amount of Chiefs fans that said he never flops. There wasn't one flop on that highlight reel, and then this very last game, Tom Brady calls it out on the national broadcast, if I remember correctly. And everyone, it's just the whole NFL fan base outside of Chiefs Kingdom has come together like, hey, listen, we're all watching this crap. And we want you to know that we know that we know that this is really getting out of hand. Now, people have pointed out the statistics that Josh Allen obviously gets. I think he's actually gotten more rough in the passer calls than Mahomes. That's not the point. The point is, when the game is on the line and it's a close play or the Chiefs their drive is about to stall, they always get some kind of call that just pops up. And I'm not even saying they're not actually penalties. It's amazing how it doesn't get called until the Chiefs need a play and then bang, it hits. So hopefully today, the entire NFL fan bases outside of obviously the Chiefs have done their part to bring that to the forefront. And that's why I tweet a lot about officiating. Because I want it to go viral. I want people on Twitter to see and know, oh crap, I want the league to look up and go, well, listen, boys, the Packer fans are on this bad. This does look bad. There's a series of calls. If you just go, you got to win the game, you got to beat the officials, then you have no right to complain when you get a bad call because you're just allowing it to happen. That's the way I see it. I know that's how the coaches see it. And I personally feel like the fans are an extension of the team, the players and the coaches. We got to do our part too. Maybe that's silly. That's cool. I would rather err on the side of caution. Hey, I'm doing what I can do to help my team rather than just sitting back complaining 3 weeks later and then say fire everybody in the building. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeesh.
All right, there you go. You heard it. You heard it from a fan right here.
I think Tim's muted.
I was muted. That's okay. My bad.
You're good, man.
I got some coffee, though. I'll wake up in a few minutes. Don't worry.
Since we're already talking about, here are the games on slate today. Obviously, the Final Four teams are going to be kicking off. Here is your start times. These are all Eastern times here, okay, gang? You got the Commanders at the Eagles. That's a 3 p.m. kickoff on Fox. So that will be Tom Brady and that crew calling that. Like I said, it'll kick off at 3 o'clock. Right now, it looks like the Eagles are 6-point favorites. I like the Commanders in this game. I really do, man. I don't know how you guys feel about it. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I do. I think Washington's hot, right? They got the hot hand right now. It would be awesome to see. It would be awesome to see a Washington Buffalo Super Bowl. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, as you guys know, well, maybe you don't, but as much as I love football, and I love it a lot, I turn off of the NFL almost entirely when the Packers season is done. I don't turn off of football. I still I'm so into the off season already with the the scouting and the draft and the pre agents, all that. But I honestly can't tell you many Super Bowl winners because I just don't care. I don't usually watch the Super Bowl, to be honest, if the Packers aren't in it, or at least the whole game. But that being said, Commanders and Bills would be an awesome Super Bowl. That would be one that I would be excited for, that I'd watch it wholeheartedly, like the whole game, because I'd be very interested in both organizations. I think it'd be massive for them. Yeah. On the counter side of that, I would rather watch paint dry than watch an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl. And if we have to see that, and that would it'd be another year where the supposed conspiracy theory of where they let the colors, that'd be it. It was red and green. Everybody thought it was going to be a Packers-Chiefs one. Boy, we were wrong.
Still worked out, huh? Yeah, as Josh Martin says here, I live in Buffalo. Bills fans are crying about the refs when they were losing to the Pats for 20 years. They brought that over to the Chiefs because they're 0-3 against them in the playoffs. Bills just can't catch a break, man. 2-0 for this says, moneymakers want the Eagles and the Chiefs, but every fan wants Washington and Buffalo. Outside of those two fan bases, I don't know one other single fan that says, yeah, man, I'd like to see the Chiefs back in the Super Bowl, or I'd like to see the Eagles back in the Super Bowl. To me, it's everybody is Washington, Buffalo. So we know who we're rooting for. Now, the Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs will kick off 6:30 Eastern time on CBS. So that'll be Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. And the Chiefs are only 1.5-point favorites in that game. So keep in mind the Chiefs are 8-0 at home, right? They were 15-2 this year, and they were 8-0 at home. I don't think that's any coincidence there. Eagles are 8-1 at home, according to this as well. So it's going to be fun, man. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because this is a Packers show, but yeah, Drew D says I won't watch it.
There's countless comment after comment that says if it's Eagles Chief, I'm not watching. So I'm glad I'm not alone.
If we polled that right now, I guarantee you'd be 85% plus that would say they want Washington and the Bills. So anyway, there's your little playoff preview. Tim, you got anything you want to add to this, man, as far as the point spread, anything at all before we move on?
Playoffs? Don't talk.
That's it. I think we're good, right?
Anybody but KC, right? Let's go.
Amen to that. And it sounds like the weather's not going to be a factor. It'll be a little chilly in both games, but it's not going to be a factor anyway. So should be a good day for some football, that's for sure. All right, let's move it along back to the Patreon group here. Real quick, and again, I apologize for having to end the show early last night, but I think we got most of that in, and then we're going to pick up where we left off here. Drew mentions I like offensive tackle Joshua Simmons from Ohio State. He could realistically be there for us and is a dominant offensive tackle. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL, but he should be healthy for 2025. I'm concerned that if we give Rasheed Walker another contract, we'll be stuck with mediocrity at left tackle permanently. He can pass block, but he can't run block very well. I think it comes down for me, Drew, and I understand your opinion there completely. For me, it's what's the price, right? If people are saying pay Rasheed Walker top 5 tackle money, absolutely not. You know, if it's something like that second deal there off of the rookie contract, you go, I don't know, 10 to 15 million per. That's a steal for a left tackle. It really is, right? Especially one that, again, the Packers prioritize pass blocking. There's no two ways about that. So, and again, when it comes to the run blocking, I don't I don't mean to keep piling on Josh Myers, but let me give you the way I look at run blocking. Most people just look at the PFF grade and go, oh, he's a horrible run blocker, right? Well, I like to see if the tape matches that up. With Rasheed, I don't see Rasheed whiffing on many run blocks. I just don't. Now, they ask him to do things like just seal the outside, just kind of walk the end out and allow them to take themselves out of the play if they're running like a split flow, a duo, something like that sometimes. But with Josh Myers, you've seen him whiff, right? So when you see the PFF grade and then you watch Josh Myers run blocking, listen, it wasn't every play. He had some good plays in run blocking game too, Josh Myers did. But most of the time I look up and go, I can see that. I can see that. With Rasheed, more times than not always, but more times than not, I watch the tape and I go, I don't know, man. I think he did a pretty damn good job run blocking. I don't see where the hate is there. But again, PFF doesn't take us behind the scenes and show us every play what they grade. But what do you guys think about what he says here? We'll get back to Josh Simmons here in a second. I'll tell you where he's at on our board at the moment and some other boards. But what do y'all think about Rasheed Walker? I think that's pretty much what we're talking about here.
I personally think that he hasn't gotten enough respect and enough admiration, just because, I mean, when we signed or drafted him, nobody even thought that he would be a blip on this team, let alone be an actual 2-year starter, a guy that's been pretty much injury hesitant or, been pretty reluctant to get in really major injuries. Statistics aren't necessarily as telling as to how well he's played. Same with the PFF grade, but what more can you ask from a 7th round, draft pick that nobody really slotted towards much success? I mean, he's protected Jordan Love's blindside pretty well, I would argue.
And the run blocking has come along with Rasheed. We saw that last year. I think he made strides in that direction. I mean, like Clayton said, he hasn't been a liability when it comes to the run blocking, which is huge. And I think that comes with experience. So even if you draft a guy who's probably not the best run blocker, you can develop that within the first couple of years. That 3-year window we always talk about with rookies. You want to see a guy kind of rounding the corner by year 3. If not, you start scratching your head. And I think Rasheed Walker is a guy that, like Jacob said, I don't think he's gotten enough respect. I think he's worked on his game and he's improved every year. And I'm with you, Jacob. I never thought we'd have a reliable starter with a 7th round pick like that, and I think he's turned out pretty good.
And I think what we're seeing is, go ahead, Jacob. Do you have something else, man?
Well, I was just going to pile on top of that too. Is if you take a step back and we look at that draft class and what it did for our offensive line, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that Tom, Walker, and Ryan all from that same draft class? And Tim just mentioned that 3-year window. We see what that means to certain players, especially Tom came in and you could tell right away the guy was a stud. Walker took him till about year 2 before people really started having any kind of confidence. And then you got Ryan, who just barely this year started making people go, oh, okay. Oh, we got a little something here. So I personally, and then obviously it was last year that we just didn't go to offensive line minus Morgan, right? After we did that big splash, so maybe this year we go back to that where Goody shakes that tree 2 or 3 times. And, I'm just interested to see where the dominoes fall, because there is that big, with Myers and Elton, who's going to be at center, which right guard are we doing? Are we going to extend any of these rookies? It is kind of a lot of questions on that offensive line, when I think going into the year, we thought maybe that was a group that was pretty shored up, but now it's a lot more up in the air.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that really what it comes down to is where they're drafted really steers this conversation, how heated it may or may not get. Right.
Yeah.
Like you said, Zach Tom been a stud since day 1, 4th round pick, I believe. So it's like, oh, he's gold. He can do nothing wrong with the fan base. Right. Rasheed Walker sits for a year, then comes out and wins the starting job at left tackle. One spot, has to pretty much retire because of the injury. And it's like, no one's going to complain about a 7th round pick starting that many games. Right. Now, if Rasheed Walker was a 1st round pick, I guarantee you there'd be a lot more heat on Rasheed Walker, right? Because it'd be like, he needs to be dominant if he's going to be – it's kind of like the old LVN talk, right?
Be as much heat as the other Walker on this team has been getting.
Exactly right, Tim. That's the perfect example right there. If Quay was a 7th round pick, we'd go, man, Quay was a stud for a 7th round pick.
Yep.
But he's a 1st round pick, and we're going – it's just like A.J. Hawk back in the day, right? A.J. Hawk, team captain for all those years, Super Bowl winning linebacker, won a national championship, right? Like he hit pretty much everything other than defensive player of the year he accomplished in his career. And there's still people that like he's the biggest bust in Packers history. But if he had been a 7th round pick, oh my God, he couldn't have done anything wrong, right? So again, with Josh Simmons, though, Drew, to answer your question here, we currently, and again, our board is changing every day. We currently have him settled in at the 37 spot. The consensus big board had him at 19. The PFF big board had him at 11. So I could see him, like you said, man. I think you hit the nail on the head, Drew. He's right there. He's realistic for us for sure. Again, offensive tackle from Ohio State. And listen, here's the thing too: whether we think Rasheed Walker's back on the team or not, you can use that dude. You can use a Josh Simmons. There's no doubt about it, right? And I know there's going to be people that get upset about that. They absolutely hated the Jordan Morgan pick because the dude got hurt. Cracks me up. But there's a little bit of precedent there for taking a tackle or a left tackle even in Jordan Morgan and moving him to guard. So you're going to have to fill in a little bit of that offensive line. I think they've got room for 3 offensive linemen to be added to this roster. When I say added to the roster, I don't mean 3 that could potentially make the 53. I mean 3 that's going to make the 53. That's kind of the way I see that. So definitely room for Josh Simmons. I think that's a great prospect there, and he's right there in that wheelhouse. He's right around the spot where we had Jordan Morgan last year too, believe it or not. We had him at 35, and we ended up taking him at whatever it was, 20 in the 20s as well. So right there in that range, no doubt. Let's see. The next one here comes from Johnny in the Patreon group. Appreciate you, Johnny. Says, is this Michael or Mikhail? How would y'all say? I think it was Mikhail, right?
You never know. You never know, man.
Pronunciation-wise, I'd say Michael, but I don't know.
Right. All right. I'll say Mikhail. You guys say Michael. Williams, edge from Georgia. Okay. He said, this kid stands out. What would it take to get him? So let's see where he is. Mikhail Williams. I've got him listed as an edge. I'm assuming that's what he is. And on our big board, Mr. Mikhail Williams might be a little lower here, gentlemen, as I'm struggling to find him. I may have to use this. Here we go. I've got him in the 54 spot on my big board. Okay. Our big board, I should say. Emilio's done more work on this than me this year. Consensus big board, he's 11th. PFF big board, he was 17th. Okay. His PFF grades are what's bringing him down, though, right? PFF grade in 2022, 302nd at his position. In 23, he was 105th at his position. And in 24, he dropped to 114th at his position. So we take into account the PFF grades somewhat as well. And there's going to be other qualifiers being added in as well, plus bonuses with RAS, things like that. But as it sits right now, I've got Mikhail Williams in the 54 spot. So when Johnny asked this question, what would it take to get him? If he's there when we pick in the second round, he might just be there for the taking, right? If you're saying what would it take to get him, if he goes as high as what the consensus big board says here, 11th or 17th, you probably have to be willing to trade up a little bit. Does that make sense, guys? And what do y'all think about that? Mikhail or Michael Williams here out of Georgia, edge defender.
I wouldn't trade up to get him.
Nah.
But I think you're right. You may have to if you're that serious. Put it this way, I'm not opposed to Williams personally. I just don't know if I would trade up to go edge in the first round. I feel like we could probably address some other needs with that pick in the first round, or trade that pick back like Clayton has mentioned a few times, and load up in the second or third round. So I don't know. I definitely wouldn't trade up to get an edge. I don't know. What do you think, Jacob?
I wouldn't trade up to get that edge. I agree. It's not nothing personal. It's not that I don't like the guy. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but just specifically like on the D line and in the cornerback room, maybe just all around, I don't see as many like clear blue chip players, even guys that graded out super well like we did last year and years prior, where you had like, I remember we had about 5 or 6 cornerbacks that we were looking at last year, and we're like, I could take any one of those guys, and there was a bunch of D linemen and that were kind of that similar vein where you're like, I wouldn't mind if number of these guys fall, where it's this year, it feels like there's a couple really nice ones at the top, but after that, it kind of gets very, I hate saying average, but a lot of times where I think it's going to come down to where they fall on the Packers board, obviously.
Absolutely.
Not as far as what the PFF grade or whatever this article says about them. But I think it's Mikhail. I think that's what it was. I just wasn't that impressed with him. I saw a lot of the other, like that Mike Green and even a few of the smaller school guys that I kind of liked a little bit more than him, but we'll see.
Yeah. And our board as it currently sits, and again, I'm going to say this 1,000 times through the draft season because people will go, you said you had him number 3. These guys in the top 5 might sink out of sight by the time the board's done, okay? But we try to get the information in early so we're not swayed by all this media hype, and then they run in their underwear and everybody loses their mind and think they're, guys a gift of football, right? So here is, you kind of mentioned this, Jacob, like, how many players are there kind of in that top tier, right? Those top 2 tiers are really where you're trying to get to, in my opinion, because I've got mine split a little bit deeper than most people's tiers. My top 2 tiers would probably be the top tier for most teams, most clubs, other than if they had just an absolute dog of a grade on someone like a generational type talent. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4 guys now that are within the top tier, okay? And that's 5 points or less on our board. Less is more for our board, okay? You got defensive tackle Mason Graham out of Michigan, cornerback Travis Hunter, could play wide receiver. I'm assuming he's going to play corner out of Colorado. Abdul Carter, edge defender out of Penn State, running back Ashton Gianti out of Boise State. Those are the only 4 in our top tier as it sits right now, okay? And then after that, in the next tier, there's only 2 guys, and that's Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, and then we have Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State, and then it drops down to the next tier. So to answer your question, or to kind of piggyback off your comment there, Jacob, what I see here is 7 players that I consider like they're dogs. These guys are probably dogs. And you really got 5 that are, or 4, I'm sorry, not 7. You've got 6 that are dogs, and you got 4 that are like, okay, yeah, these dudes, they're the best in the draft as it sits right now. Again, that could change, but hopefully that kind of makes sense with what you guys were saying there.
I think it does. I'm looking at if we go to the next tier down and we look at the edge group, there's three names that I think we probably like over Williams, like Jacob was saying, Mike Green,
Exactly.
and Jack Sawyer, James Pierce. If you're talking edge, and honestly, if we're gonna go up, I'd rather go after one of them trench monsters there, Walter Nolan or the kid from Michigan, you know.
Yeah. And, some people are lower on Walter Nolan than I am. I've got him in the 7 or the 16 spot right now. But, like Consensus Big Board had him 27, PFF Big Board had him 33. But Daniel Jeremiah actually had him as the 2nd defensive lineman taken in his latest mock draft. If we get time, we'll get to that. So it's something to keep an eye on there for sure. Let's go to the chat. Go ahead, man. Sorry.
I was just wondering, I haven't seen your board with when it's color coded. Like, can you scroll down just a little bit? I just want to see how yours compares to what I've been looking at.
Yeah, man.
I heard there, man. Okay.
Is there anybody you're looking for in particular?
Well, I was listening. I really like Trey Harris. I know Tim is big on him and Jaden Higgins as well. I was just trying to see. There was an edge out of Louisville, Ashton. There he is. I don't know how to say that last name. Galotti. 47 on yours. That guy had me interested. Yeah. And same with Ivy above him. Those 2 were kind of guys that were a little outside of obviously where we're picking, but it made sense to me that Packers may try to, swipe one of those guys up if they think that they're worth the draft pick. I don't know if that's too much of a stretch.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ashton Galotti, if that's how you say it, or Galote. I'm not sure how you would say it, but he's 86 on the Consensus Big Board, and we have him in the 47 spot. So I love looking at this number. I love how Emilio set this up too. Consensus Big Board compared to our grade, and we've got it sorted by our grade. So what you can do is just look here. Consensus Big Board had him at 86. We got him at 47, right? Nice. That's where you can kind of see where our board's differentiating from all the experts, right? And I don't mean to toot our own horn, but last year, man, our damn board, it was just like bang. Every round you look up and go, maybe 1 or 2 players that didn't get taken. It's like this thing is falling in place perfect. So, again, the goal isn't to try to predict where they're going, to predict, how everything's going to unfold. The goal is to put as much information into the board as you can that's not just noise that's going to mix things up to where we think, okay, we're pretty damn close to here are the most valuable players in this order, right? And we're not going to hit on all of them, obviously. Let's go to the chat, man. The chat is absolutely lit up. Princeton here says, if Morgan is going to be a guard, then O-tackle is a need for us, especially if Glover has now been moved inside along with Monk and Donovan Jennings. And that's the thing, Prince, that I keep coming back to. People, when we did our mock draft, we got surprisingly, we got really good feedback. Tim, I don't know if you looked, it's got like 300,000 views on that mock draft. And there's negative in there. Don't get me wrong, but it's probably 75-25 positive to negative. And one of the big comments is cornerback. Where's the corner early? You got to take a corner early. You don't understand how the draft works if you think you've got to take something early. It's all about the best player available, and you try to line that up with your needs, or else you end up reaching in 2 or 3 rounds to get your needs before you should have kind of settled in and got it. And also, you got to take into consideration, when we looked at the market, we see more options at cornerback than we do 3-tech. So it's like you could probably get that need filled in free agency at corner. Jair may be back and nobody's saying we need a corner, right? That's the other thing. So, but with what he's saying here, what I tell people is like, yeah, you're probably, what is precedent? What does history tell us? History tells us the Packers love drafting tackles and converting them to guard. So that's why you've seen us, like this one guy was being a smartass last night on Twitter. And I said, yeah, in this scenario, we're kicking Elton or someone else. I said, Rob Domofsky reported last year the center of the future is already in the building, whether that's Jacob Monk or that's Elton Jenkins or that's Sean Ryan, whoever it may be, Jordan Morgan, who knows, right? Whoever that is, in this scenario, Elton's kicking the center. I said, now, I wanted to say some really bad words. I said, now, go back and look at the draft again, right? Like, you'll see we picked 2 guards late in the draft because there was more value there than tackle. So this whole idea that we could take tackle early or at any point and then convert them, I think Prince is spot on here, right? O-tackle is a need because you're going to need someone to play backup left tackle if Andre Dillard doesn't come back either, right? Andre Dillard graded out well. He just barely played at all. When I say graded out well, I mean obviously with PFF. So Turtle says LVN has been disappointing. Enigbare and even undrafted Cox has outperformed him. It depends on what you mean by outperformed here. If you're talking run stops, not the case, right? If you're talking pressure percentage, yes, Brenton Cox Jr. outperformed everyone in pressure percentage, right? Yeah. But not in run stops. And that's kind of been the knock on him, right? But I will say this, Jacob, we were talking about the other day, man. He played with so much more control this year. Like he was so much more effective in the running game than he has been in the past. He seems like he's starting to harness that a little bit. As far as LVN has been disappointing, he was 3rd on the team in pressures. It was literally Brenton Cox Jr., Rashawn Gary, and then LVN. So once again, we're right back to that original conversation of because LVN's a first-round pick, he's a disappointment, right? And I get it. I understand it. It makes sense. It really does. But I think LVN is poised to take that next step because I felt like he took that step last year. Now, if you're one of these people, and I'm not saying So Turtles is, if you're one of these people that just look at the PFF grade, you're going to be disappointed. Just like you're going to be disappointed in TJ Slayton, who, by the way, other people are noticing, holy cow, he tore it up this year with his opportunities. So that's why I want to write PFF a letter and go, hey, man, can you just give me a play-by-play breakdown? And just give me TJ Slayton's play-by-play breakdown. Give me a timestamp, this game, this time, this down and distance. Here was his grade on this play. So we can see if we actually agree or disagree, because it does kind of feel like somebody's using one hand with the keyboard and eating Cheetos with the other, just punching in random ass information. So anyway, super chat from Aaron Rodgers, our Aaron Rodgers, not the Aaron Rodgers, said, morning, fellas. Thoughts on Trey Harris, Ole Miss? Just started watching his tape. Might be the next Metcalf top. Yeah, Trey Harris is a dog. You mentioned him, right? And I think, listen, Tim this year is all over the big body receiver. And I'll let you start here, and I want to get Jacob's take. I'll see if I can find him on the board real quick.
Yeah, Trey Harris, Ole Miss. Yeah, number 3 on my list. I got Higgins, Jalen Royals out of Utah State, and Trey Harris on my little top 3 list here. And I think Aaron hit it on the head. Might be the next DK Metcalf type of receiver, which honestly, if, we've entertained the thought that the Packers might be able to get their hands on DK Metcalf at some point here this offseason. But if not, I think there's a couple of those guys in the draft, and I definitely think that Trey Harris out of Ole Miss is one of them. I haven't gotten to see a lot, not as much tape as I wanted to see on Harris. He's next on my list, but what I've seen so far, man, that dude is a monster. I don't know. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, that's one that popped off the page as well. I haven't gotten to the point where I started watching much tape yet, but he's definitely one that I have written down. And it just kind of makes sense. There was another comment that talked about there was 3 different prospects. Yeah, so Prince actually said it here. I like the Ole Miss prospects early: Nolan, Amos, and Paul Jr. But I think that Trey Harris right there is also one that needs to be in that consideration.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And again, thank you for the super chat, Aaron. We appreciate you, buddy. Emilio joins us now. I can't believe he's awake. Look at this.
How many times going to come to my press conference late?
What's up, Emilio? How you doing?
Matt, I'm probably coming in late every time.
Is that vodka warm in that cup, sir?
No, but there is that Bailey's. There's that Irish cream in there.
Hey, there you go.
Splash. I bet there's a splash in there. So Trey Harris, to answer the question there from, I think it was, Aaron Rodgers with the super chat. We have him currently 31st on our board. All right. Consensus big board 44th. PFF big board had him at 86, and we have him in the 31 spot. Emilio, this could be the year that in the first round, Goody looks up and goes, you know what? Because there's a few wide receivers that really grab my attention that I'm like, I could see them going in the first round. Trey Harris is definitely one of those out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's in that top 5 with Luther, Emeka, and Trey McMillan from Arizona there. So I definitely could see that being the case. But it's everything we've wished for, and what's going to happen when it actually happens. I don't know if Goody's going to pull the trigger. I still feel like it's going defense, but I like the idea that there's some talent up there that we could still go get.
Yeah, definitely. And again, with Trey Harris here, Emilio put in there EWS. That means he's at the East-West Shrine game. Now, will he play in it? I don't know. There's a little bit of lack of information on that part. If you guys know of a specific part of their website or someone on Twitter that has listed who's actually playing in the game, I would love to get that information to all of our listeners. So see if we could run that down at some point. But he is definitely there, Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. And again, Jackson Dart with that crew down there in Ole Miss and what Lane Kiffin did this year, man, they really hit the transfer portal hard, which is funny because Ole Miss has always hit the transfer portal hard. It's just now it's legal to do it, okay? So they've always paid players, as you've seen documentary after documentary, but now they're doing it legally. So, again, Aaron, thank you for that super chat, man. Let's go back up here. Fidel Smith in the YouTube chat says, do we draft a veteran pass rusher or I think what he meant was, do we sign a veteran pass rusher or draft one? To me, it all comes down to the market, Fidel. I think there's a better chance of us drafting one than signing one. However, if you're asking what would I do, I would love for them to go get Khalil Mack. That's me personally. That's one guy that I see on the open market that I say, you know what, you're overpaying for great if you go get him. And but for a year or maybe 2, that way you can get out of it if he does hit that wall. And we've got to have the understanding that he may hit that wall this year, right? But again, you have him rotating in and out. You just throw him into that hockey lineup that we always talked about with the defensive line. And people like to bag on LVN. They like to bag on Rashawn Gary because of that heavy rotation. Guys, that's a coaching decision. That has nothing to do with the players, right? And if you say you disagree with that heavy rotation, I get it. I understand it's frustrating for me too, but we can't blame the players as if they don't warrant more playing time when we know damn well for the last 5 years, ever since LaFleur got here, it's always a topic of conversation in the offseason is why do they rotate so much? It's obviously a LaFleur thing because we went through multiple defensive coordinators and that has stayed the same. You know what I'm saying, guys?
Mm-hmm.
And what do y'all think about this question here from Fidel? Do you think they'll sign one or draft one?
I'd rather sign one, like you said. I think that you can go find that talent that's immediate. It's not like we don't have some that's coming up and coming. So I would rather just go sign one that is proven instead of trying to wait. Like Goody was saying in his presser, it's time that we just start chasing championships. It's not a window thing. It's just we just need to start executing and turn up the heat a little bit. I think that would include. Going out and signing somebody, bringing in some fresh blood, and then obviously, replace with the draft. But we've been replacing with the draft for a while. I'm not opposed to, grabbing some talent outside the office.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about this team needing to get a little older and not leaning on youth, and we need to pepper in some veteran leadership there. I think the edge group would be a good place. I even think that defensive line in general would be a good place to add, but we've talked about that the 3-tech market looking kind of light in free agency and in the draft, quite frankly, this year. It's Deion Walker or nobody, just so you know, in the draft. Let's go. But no, I think, wherever we can. I mean, we talked offensively about the possibility of, a Tay Adams or somebody, in the receiver room being a veteran add to this team. I think both sides of the ball, we could use at least, 1 or 2 guys that are proven vets out there.
Yeah, just to round that out quick. I mean, if you look back at the Packers in the last 20, 30 years, when they add actual blue chip type defensive players, it seems like it's worked out pretty well. I mean, Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Julius Peppers, you can go back to Reggie White, you could throw in Charles Woodson. So if we're going to make a move, let's do it with somebody that's actually top of his game. Let's do a Khalil Mack. Let's go for Myles Garrett. Let's go for Crosby. Let's go for, you know what I'm saying? Something that actually is a difference maker, that is, it's going to be a difference maker.
Yeah. And kind of a part of the conversation here, Emilio, I don't know how we should mark this. We may just change him or at least put a V next to his name, but Armin Membo, Dane Brewer just tweeted out, I spent time at the offensive line masterminds yesterday and had a chance to see Membo, Will Campbell, and a few others work out in person. Really impressive movers. They're training at tackles. Plenty of interesting insights here to share later, as he had been asked, can Membo play left tackle due to his athleticism? This guy said Bears need him badly. Bears need everybody badly. Let's just put it that way. But with Membo, they ask him, can he play tackle? It sounds like they're working them all out at tackle. Maybe it's a little too early to slap him with a tackle versatility thing there, but it looks like they're trying him there this year. As you can see on our board, Membo is currently in the 12 spot. He's 36 on the consensus big board, 20th on the PFF big board. So we have him quite a bit higher on the board than other people. So.
Yeah.
Vote for this says Zadarius Smith might be available in free agency.
There you go.
Put that name in my mouth right there. Thank you.
Oh, man. Let's see here. Josh Martin with the super chat. I'm tired of draft and development / youngest team. Here's the thing, Josh. Every year, like when we mention Khalil Mack, people say he's too old. We mention a 28-year-older, right? 28-year-old guy. He's too old. It's like, boys, if we're going to continue to run back the youngest team in the league every single year, then you're expecting to make history winning the Super Bowl. It has never happened. Could it happen? Yeah, sure. But at some point, we got to start going, we're making stupid mistakes. Emilio made me feel like I was in timeout all year long as much as he complained about the penalties. I felt like I was in trouble for making penalties. We talked about it so much. And okay, how do you combat that? You want to stop making stupid penalties? You've got to get veteran leadership in there. You've got to get people who are – it's no coincidence that you look at the teams that have less penalties than the Packers. They're older, right? They're more experienced, right? They've learned what they can get away with and what they can't, right? Now, sometimes it just matters if you're playing the Chiefs or not. You know what I mean? You can't do much about that. You're just going to get penalized if you play the Chiefs. But this is – I think Josh Martin's spot on here, guys. Like, you've got to turn the – I'm not saying you go make them the oldest roster in the league now. What we're simply saying is you need to add 3 or 4 veterans. And now some people would look at, well, let's just don't break the bank for those veterans. Okay, that's cool. Just make sure you don't overpay, but you're willing to overpay for great. And to me, people like Khalil Mack is one of those great players. Like, even if you were to go get Max Crosby in a trade, now I think fans are really underestimating what his trade value would be, because they just feel like, the Raiders are willing to take peanuts for him. I don't think that's the case at all. But we're also talking about getting rid of Jair. Guys, the reality is Jair is one of the oldest players on the team at 28. If you trade him, guess what? You just got even younger, right? So I don't know. You got to bring in some veteran leaders. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's why Khalil Mack is the one that I keep coming back to. It just keeps popping up in my face every single time. And there's going to be a flurry of players that are going to get cut here pretty soon too, Jacob. So, keep that in mind, right?
What do you think? I think a great summarization of what we kind of just were talking about. Fidel Smith says, draft and development is what got us here, where we are today, but mixing in veteran talent with that young talent is what has won us Super Bowls in the past. And I think that's been a big, the last 2 years. If we haven't had any of that big, like Tim, we need those big blue chippers coming in. We need those splash free agents. I mean, look what happened when we had, obviously, with Jacobs and X. I mean, that alone right there, almost completely. Without those two guys, I don't think we're sitting here talking about a successful season. You know what I mean? And we are maybe one more puzzle piece away, I would argue, probably in the offensive side of the ball to just make us a little bit different, separate us a little more. So it is, I think it's a good point, Josh.
Yeah, completely agree. Anything else you guys want to add to that comment there before we move on?
No, just need a little age. That's it. Nothing wrong. A little experience.
Little seasoning.
Nothing wrong with a little experience, right, Jacob?
A little bit of that right there.
Oh, I got a story for you. Never mind. We'll talk after.
Jeez.
Easy killer, easy. All right. We're going to have to bring back the what was the name of that facility that we used to mention all the time in Green Bay?
Oh, The Office? You talking about The Office?
No, not the Oval Office. The other one.
It's like Carrying Oaks or like Wandering.
Shady Acres.
Oh, Shady
Shady
Acres.
Yeah,
Oh.
whatever it was. Yeah, Shady Oaks. Is that what it was?
Yeah, no, yeah, Shady. They take a break in the wintertime, though. That's the problem. It's so cold. We don't get out very often. And
Different kind of old people over there as opposed to the Oval Office. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole different crew over there. But with that being said, after that free advertising clip, that's going to do it for hour one. We'll be seeing you on the other side here for hour two. Appreciate y'all on the podcast.